Seventh, Navarro's claim. While the United States of America pays to arm Ukraine, India bankrolls Russia even as it slaps some of the world's highest tariffs on US goods, which in turn punishes American exporters. We run a 50 billion trade deficit with India, and they are using our dollars to buy Russian oil. They make a killing and Ukrainians die. Second issue here is that India and Russia have one historic defense ties. US wants to cut a deal with Russia. Third, it is about India's strategic autonomy. Fourth, we choose our friends. Fifth, Europe's war isn't India's war. So, the death in Ukraine is being put on India's shoulder. Fred, my question here is, the war did not start because India is bankrolling it. The war started because Americans went back on their promise of NATO. Americans had promised the Russian after the collapse of Soviet Union that the two shall never meet after the Warsaw Pact collapsed. So how come India has become a laundromat of war? I mean to say, this is beyond belief. A lot of Indians say, how did we start financing a war in Ukraine? The fact that it was something which had to do with the West, American foreign policy, what was promised to then Secretary of State Baker in 1990s when George W. Bush Sr. was the president, India had nothing to do with it.
This is very much a war of the post-Soviet succession. It's a local war that has become this great global struggle, mainly between Russia and the West. The war in Ukraine is lamentable. It's an awful thing, but it has a lot of similarities with other post-imperial wars like Algeria or Ireland. A lot of similarities there, and it's in Russia's backyard. I'm not advocating this, but you can see the reasons why they don't want Ukraine to slip into the Western sphere of influence by joining NATO. And this is what it's about. You're right. It's nothing to do with India, and the way it's become this huge global contest where the United States is trying to influence the whole world to isolate Russia because of it. I would say even if they could, it probably wouldn't work. Russians are fighting, whether you like it or not, for war objectives that they have, that they consider important. Russia, nobody ever made money by betting on the Russians not being able to handle a lot of deprivation. They will. They're, as far as I can see, the Russian society is consolidated behind Putin in this war. They are able economically, socially, militarily to conduct and prosecute this war for a long time to come. They have objectives that they're not going to compromise on. And so it doesn't matter, whether India buys Russian oil or not on the battlefield down there, not very much. And these tactics really, I think, reflect desperation in Washington over how to deal with this, because 3 years of throwing the biggest barrage of sanctions against any country ever has had no effect on Russia. They're grasping at straws. They're trying to find some way to exert pressure on Putin, but I'm doubtful that even if they could, that it would have much effect.